In this lesson, we're going to look at how to write quadratic functions. We're going to learn how to write them in Vertex form, and then how to then take the equation and transform it into standard form. So if you'll please take a minute to set up your notebook, write down your essential question, although I know this is a statement, not a question, but this is something that you need to be able to do after you take the notes and we are done practicing this lesson. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so that we can see our notes a little bit better. You have the template in front of you, but remember, if you lost the template, you can take your own notes. So the first thing I just want to remind you is of the two different forms that we've already talked about. Remember, vertex form of a quadratic equation is f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Remember, hk represents the vertex. And what we're going to be looking at today, too, is how to find that a value, because a, remember, affects the width of our graph. Vertex form of a quadratic, remember, is f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And in this case, remember, a, b, and c are just numbers. They just represent real numbers. Okay, so I've given you a couple of steps to think through. The first step says use vertex form by plugging in the vertex and a point to solve for a. So we're going to pick any point that we're given or that we know from the graph. We'll then write the equation in vertex form, and then we'll transform it into standard form. So in the first example that I gave you, it says write a quadratic function in vertex form whose graph has the vertex of 1, 2. And so just to be helpful, because I know I get confused too, I'm going to immediately label this HK. And passes through the point 310. Well, 310, that's our point we're going to use, and I'm going to label this XY because that's where we're going to plug it in into our vertex form formula. We don't currently know the a value, so our first step is going to be to plug in those 2 points and find a. So looking up above, f of x or y is 10 equals, we don't know a. Our x value we know to be 3. So let's see, 3 minus h, which is 1, squared, and then plus k, which is 2. So all we did was fill in the vertex form of our equation so that we can solve for a. So I'm going to start out by taking care of my parentheses. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 2 squared is 4. And I'm looking at my notes, and I think that I messed up in my notes. Okay, I forgot to square it, so don't forget to square it. Then we're going to say minus 2. We get 8 equals 4a. And if we divide by 4, we get a equals 2. So now that we know our a value, we're ready to write the equation in vertex form. So it would be f of x equals a, which is 2, times x minus 1 squared plus 2. So at this point, all I did was I filled in our solved for a value and my vertex. And I want an equation that represents this whole graph. And so that would be vertex form. So now to write it in standard form, we have to take that same equation and we have to evaluate it and we have to rearrange it. Well, this is where our square of a binomial rule comes in. I want you to see that this part right here, we either have to remember our rule or we're going to have to write it out as x plus 1 times x plus 1 and either FOIL or box that. Okay. So let's see, when we do that, we're going to have f of x equals 2 times, now remember the rule was square the first term, whoops, and I wrote x plus 1, and that should be x minus 1. Okay, square the first term, square the last term, which is positive 1, find their product, negative 1x, and double it. Okay, so that's what it would look like when we square, whether we FOIL it or box it or use our rule. And so now what I want you to see is you're going to have to distribute the 2. So it'd be 2x squared minus 4x plus 2, and then plus our 2 at the end. So our equation in standard form would be f of x equals 2x squared minus 4x plus 4. Now I know that was a lot to take in, so I'm going to recommend at this point that maybe you pause the video and go back and re-listen to it and just listen and look at what you wrote down as you're listening to it. And now we're going to try the next example together. This one's a little bit trickier just because we're going to end up with some fractions. So again, when I look at the problem, I'm going to go through and I'm going to label everything. Here's my vertex, so I know that's h and k. And it passes through the point 0, negative 14. So I should have x, y right there. We're going to find our a value. So my y value is negative 14. I don't know what a is. My x is 0 minus negative 3 squared plus 5. And I hope that you know that turns into a plus, but I wanted you to see that. So this would be negative 14 equals 9a plus 5. When I subtract 5, I get negative 19 equals 9a, and so my a value is negative 19 over 9. Writing it in vertex form, f of x equals negative 19 over 9 times x minus negative 3, which would be plus, squared, plus 5. And so there is vertex form. Now we need to transform this into standard form. I'm going to start by squaring my x plus 3, FOIL box or use the rule. So it would be f of x equals negative 19 over 9 times x squared plus 6x plus 9, and then plus my 5 at the ends. Now I know you're panicking a little bit because there's fractions, but we're going to keep going. I'm going to distribute this, negative 19 over 9 x squared. Okay, I had to come to the side when I thought about negative 19 times 6. So what I want you to see is it reduces, and I get negative 38 over 3x minus 19, because the 9s will cancel out right here, plus 5. And so my equation in standard form, negative 19 over 9 x squared minus 38 over 3x minus 14. Okay, a little more difficult, but it was still doable. You have one more example on your notes, and I want you now to look at our steps, look at what we did, and try to work through a problem on your own. And I will ask you to show me this and share your work when you come to class tomorrow.